Networking has long been the secret to landing the next big contract or moving up the ranks in the professional world. It's a skill taught in business schools and drilled into college graduates embarking on any career path. LinkedIn, an online social network with more than 350 million users, has moved the art of professional networking online. In fact, LinkedIn adds 2 new users per second and is used by people all around the world, in 200 countries and territories to be exact. The platform has also changed the way employers screen candidates and job seekers. It also connects people with new opportunities, proving once and for all, it really is all about who you know in the world. I recently sat down with LinkedIn co-founder Alan Blue at the 2015 Aspen Ideas Festival to learn about the behind-the-scenes challenges faced by the world's largest professional network and how they plan to change the way we do business yet again. Let me start by making an observation. I thought it was great you sat down and you talked about the lights. You're a lighting guy. How does a lighting guy become a LinkedIn guy? And I know that you also lectured at Stanford. It just seems like such a stretch to end up sitting across from me talking about this, given your background.
Yeah, so first of all, getting into the world of technology back in 1997 was actually, it was for everybody. There was no internet, effectively, in 1997, so there was no training programs for it. No one had any expectation about who could do it well. No one even knew how to do it well. So LinkedIn was, well, actually back then it was a dating site called SocialNet. Basically, we were all making it up as we went along. So people came from everywhere. My co-founder, Reid Hoffman, his degree's in philosophy. So come from very different backgrounds. It's actually something that I tell companies now that are struggling with being innovative is, how do you be innovative? You get diversity. You get a diversity of opinion. You get a diversity of life experience. Those things matter a huge amount in terms of being able to solve new problems or solve old problems in new ways.
So bringing this diversity together, as you describe it, do you think that you were thinking outside the box perhaps more than somebody who might have come at it from a different angle? Or
I think insiders have a really hard time thinking outside the box. So the more you know about the way the system works, the more likely you're constrained by your understanding of it. So if I work in the government, and I worked in the government for a really long time, I know how the government works. I know how the game is played. I know how to get things done in that space. But it means that I think in those terms. So then when somebody comes from the outside who has a totally different opinion, it pays to listen to that person because that person's looking at it with fresh eyes. We always appreciate this even in new employees who come to LinkedIn, people who haven't yet incorporated everything we know about the company. Those are the people who come in with the best ideas.
Interesting. What I've heard is it starts in the living room. You mentioned Reid. Take us to that couch. I mean, how does something like this start? I mean, everybody talks about how the startups in the garage or whatever. Obviously, you're in the living room. Are you just kicking around ideas? Take us to the very beginning, and then take us along the narrative, if you will.
So LinkedIn, we first started talking about it in the summer of 2002, and yeah, we were meeting in Reid's house. He basically had an apartment in downtown Mountain View, and he called us up one day, it was me and 3 other folks, and said, I've got some ideas, I just want to bounce them off people. And one of those ideas was the idea for what is now LinkedIn. It was basically an encapsulation of everything he knew about being an entrepreneur after having done it several times in Silicon Valley. So it was all that deep knowledge about, I've observed the way social networks get formed. I've observed the way that reputation functions. I've observed the way venture capitalists make decisions. I've observed the way that some companies are successful and some are not. And it seems like the fundamental components of doing that are being able to call on the people around you. How do you get the best 5 people to do your startup with? Well, you get them from people who you already know or people you've worked with before. So those relationships matter a tremendous amount. What if we could bring that same network power to anybody doing any kind of work anywhere? So we wanted to see if we could take advantage of that shared knowledge and understanding, people helping each other to succeed. Nobody ever gets anything done alone. We all work with other people. So how could we basically help everyone do that? And hopefully make the world a more prosperous place.
Did you ever think when you were first starting this, you know, let's gear this towards the employees, teach them all the things, use this, create this method, or did you think it's probably better to go the avenue of the employer because that's probably where the money is?
In the end, if we are serving that individual human being well, even if that person's a recruiter, that person will help their network. They'll participate in the system and they'll generate value for the entire group. If, however, they're just out for themselves, or they feel like the system is built for somebody else, they won't contribute that value. And then all of us lose, including LinkedIn. If LinkedIn has two pillars, those two pillars are do something you love and be great doing it. We want to make sure that LinkedIn is there no matter where you are on that spectrum.
Let's talk about the worldwide footprint. I mean, you start there in the Silicon Valley. Obviously, you have millions from all around the world there. Are there distinct differences, perhaps the United States, maybe in how things are done in Asia or Europe? Talk to me about that, and how does LinkedIn kind of fit within that?
Yeah. It's actually been fascinating to find out because, like many tech companies, we started in the United States with a very American view, because that's where we all grew up and the environment that we knew, actually a very Silicon Valley view, truth be told. As we have expanded out into the world, we have found that LinkedIn takes deep and immediate root in some cultures and takes a little longer to find a good home in others. So, for instance, our most deeply broadly adopting culture is the Netherlands. There are many reasons this is the case, but some of them include the fact that the Netherlands, the people who work there deeply understand the importance of personal relationships and the importance of balancing, as you were saying, the difference between what you know and who you know in terms of making things happen. It's part of the business culture there. It also helps that they speak English for most of their business. Otherwise, it would have been a longer haul. As you turn to other places, you begin to address different kinds of business cultures. India is fascinating because India is such a young business culture. I mean, the average age of a professional there is 24, I think. Average age of a professional. Huge number of extremely young people who are coming in. Their needs are different. And their notion of how to build a network and everything is much like any young person's, which is not quite sure how it works, need help trying to figure that out, more interested in education and school and in first jobs than in building new companies or scaling large ones. So it's a very different kind of business environment there.
Used to be back in the day, I'd get a resume, I'd look at it, and maybe there's a letter of recommendation. Does an employer nowadays maybe look at that, but then boom, they're right to LinkedIn and they're looking at your experience, but they're also looking at what coworkers have said, and how much does that factor into to helping someone continue on the path of their career?
It's important. Once upon a time, it was very much employers had all the power and individuals had very little. Products like LinkedIn have flipped that around. I, as an individual, now have way more knowledge. And not just LinkedIn, but basically any job board is where it all started. I have way more knowledge now about what jobs are available, what skills I need in order to do it. I have the ability to reach out through my own network as a job seeker to get things done. So as an employer, I'm now making hiring decisions based on other things. Culture fit. Do we believe that we are aligned in terms of the mission that we have in the world? Is this person going to be a good team member? Those are the kinds of things that employers need to start considering. And those things don't appear at all on a resume.
The recession hit and the field I'm in, journalism, just got leveled. I know so many journalists, I know Pulitzer Prize winners who couldn't find a job. Obviously, you know, you serve different niches. I think a lot about young people who are getting started in their careers, but then you have people who've kind of done very well in their career. Suddenly, boom, the door's shut. They've got to shift to something else. Any suggestions for them on how do you go about doing that?
The world of work is changing now faster than it's ever changed. So those kinds of moments when the door might shut or when a particular kind of work no longer exists, those are going to happen with greater and greater frequency in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So it's going to be a radically different world. It means that as job seekers, we need to change. We need to think differently about how we go about it. There's no one there who's going to be holding our hands through the entire thing. We got to pick up the tools that are available and use them. So what that means, I think mostly, is how do you learn how to learn? Because you're going to change your skills a lot during your life. How do you explore new possibilities to make sure that you're working on something that you feel passionate about? how do you take advantage of the relationships that you've got in order to know what's actually out there and learn about new things? And how do you experiment? How do you find new possibilities out there that you hadn't considered? The world right now is full of opportunities. If you look at the maker movement or the way people build apps, the number of possibilities for creating something new have never been greater, never been greater. And that's only going to increase over time. Want to feel what it's like to work in a particular industry? Go try driving a cab for Uber, a car for Uber. Go try to work at Upwork. Try to start your own thing. Find somebody to do a quick project with. Experiment with things. You have the ability to do it now. And those abilities, take advantage of them because the world's changing fast around you.
The future looks bright. Alan Blue, thanks so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We'll be right back with this week's Full Frame.